What a word, is your boy DJ on the mic. What coming in again with another deck list profile for you. It's one of my personal pet projects I've been rocking on with, and it's gonna be Wargreymon OTK, baby. And I'm not gonna lie, guys, I've been cooking up a list real spicy. I'm talking cleave, no weave. I'll tell you, this boy just goes in and absolutely just ends an opponent's career. So if this is a video for you as you just want to just go to locals, not necessarily think too much, but when you push out, it's just curtains. Then stick around and enjoy. And if you want to see more of lists like this, make sure you subscribe to the notification bell because I do videos on the reg. Well, further ado, I think you know what time it is. What play my shit?
Digital gate open.
Okay, let's teach you the ways of the grey. So starting off with the eggs, we do rock in with the BT5 Wargreymon. This is just going to be our draw egg. It is very crucial for us to kind of get our pieces, and if we are forced to push out and go with a nice high roll play, then so be it, because if we obviously swing with Digimon Wargreymon or Omnimon in name, draw one, which is always the worth. So that concludes for the eggs. Going on to the rookies, solid 12. So we start off with the BT14 Wargreymon that we run at 4. This is definitely crucial for us to have this in this main stack in order for us to kind of get that 2000 DP when we're at our top end. Also, it does have a start of main, is that if we do have a Tai Kamiya out, we are able to evo into a Greymon without paying the cost, which is really good for us to make a comeback kind of play. Then we combo up with the Searcher, and this is going to be helpful for us to get our pieces, especially our line and also our Tai Kamiya. And Tai Kamiya is definitely a linchpin of the deck because that was obviously key for our damage output to achieve that OTK fail swoop attack, which obviously claims us the game. And then lastly, we just floor that off with the Agumon X antibody. This is obviously enables us to search out further, get out our X antibody, which once again, very key card for us to kind of go to our top end and just blitz the opponent's security, as well as actually obtaining one of our pieces that we may need in order for us to climb up efficiently. Also, as well, obviously you can either on top of any of your Agumons in the raising for that additional draw, and also helps out with our protection that we do have off of our level 4s and 5s. So that concludes for the rookies. Now going over to the champions, and once again is the main bridge of the deck, and they fulfill different roles. So we start off with the starter deck Greymon. We run that at a solid 4 off. This is key in order for us to have this in our stack. That security attack is very, very helpful for us to just secure the OTK potential. Then our utility is going to be then our BT12 Greymon. This is great when we obviously have played out an Agumon on a previous turn, and if we do have a Tai Kamiya in our hand, we can evo into this and we can play that for free if we do not have a Tai Kamiya out already. So really helpful for us to obviously establish that Tamer, because once again, key for us to achieve that OTK. Then we have the protection mons, which is going to be your Greymon X antibody. Really helpful for us to kind of, negate any form of shenanigans in regards to deletion effects or being returned to hand or deck. And then lastly, we go with the one of the restricted Greymon X antibody here. And once again, this is great, but has a different condition, is that if you have X antibody in the source, you're able to bot deck that in order for you to prevent it being removed from the field, which once again really helpful. On top of that, it does have the your turn, is that if we evo into a dual colored Digimon, we are able to reduce the evo by 1 per color, which obviously is helpful for us to kind of cheat up our line more efficiently. So that concludes for the champions. Now let's go over to the ultimate. So ultimates here, this is where we secure the OTK. These Digimon facilitate us securing that and gets our board established nicely. So we go with the new BT22 Rise. This is the new source of the of the OTK list, just because it enables us to play out a Tamer, red or black, if we have one or fewer out on field. So ultimately, even if we already have a Tai Kamiya out, we are able to get another Tai Kamiya out, which is once again really powerful because it gives us an additional security check when we are swinging with our big mom right there. It also has raid, which we don't necessarily going to be using that raid, but the other thing is that it also has security attack +1, and this is why this card is so cracked because it does so much for this style of play. Really huge. Then we also have another playmaker here, which is going to be the EX9 Metal Greymon Arterius mode, which we do run at 2. The reason being that this is kind of like a different way of kind of utilizing your Tamers to kind of evo into your top end, because it has a non-playable when dissolving, that is that it acts as a form of removal, so we can pop an 8k Digimon, which is actually really nice. And then your turn, when any of your Digimon or Tamers with Garurumon or Tai Kamiya in their names are played, or a Digimon digivolves into a Digimon with Garurumon in the Garurumon, this Digimon may digivolve into a Digimon with Greymon in its name without paying the cost. So naturally for us, we're effectively going to be playing down this, which then effectively will trigger this to evo into our Wargreymon, which once again really huge because it would have cost us 4 anyway. So it's a matter of kind of like this alone just secures us getting that OTK set up beautifully in order for us to kind of just clap cheeks. It's nutty. Then lastly, we will be running the 2 of the promo Metal Grey. So this works nicely in tandem with these 2 cards because effectively this does count as a Metal Greymon, and also acts as a nice bit of protection there as well. And then we can evo with this on top of this, because this will obviously can evo on top of a Metal Greymon for the cost of 1. Once again, gives us that nice bit of extra draw, gives us a nice bit of extra protection if we even manage to miss it on the lower end. It's really good utility here. And because, you know, we don't necessarily need to run the BT12 Metal Grey that also has piercing, because naturally our top end is going to have that piercing anyway, and we're not going to be piercing for anything because the board is going to be absolutely cleared. That's the main goal of this list. So that concludes there for the level 5s. Now let's go to level 6 and 7s. So this right here is definitely where, when you're pushing out, you should be having game. You should have had all your pieces ready to just go up into a nice combo and have that game set up. So we first go into our BT14 Wargrey. This is a very strong card, and it's definitely probably one of the best Wargreys to facilitate this kind of playstyle, because it kind of has a pseudo blitz. So when digivolving, this Digimon gains raid for the turn, then it may attack, which is once again really pivotal, especially when we have X antibody in the stack. Then when attacking, if you have a Tamer, this Digimon gains security attack +1 and piercing for the turn. So naturally, you should not be raiding into anything because your main top end is going to potentially delete that target or bot deck that target, meaning that if you was raiding into that target and you've bot decked it, you've actually whiffed because there's no valid target to actually raid into anymore. So naturally, you're going to be swinging in security, and you're going to be having additional checks here. Depending on obviously your inheritables, you should have Start Deck Greymon, Rise, and Tai Kamiya out, which is effectively 3 checks right there, just inheritables alone, and then you'll gain an additional check right there, totaling you up to 5 checks in total. And then on top of that, that's when you will effectively go to your main win comp, which I'll show further. But first, we do have to go in with a little spicy tech, and that is going to be the BT21 Wargrey. So this is actually really solid because it does have innate rush, which is great in order for us to, you know, if we do have to make a comeback mechanic or comeback play, then this definitely helps out on that. Also punishes wide boards there as well, because when this Digimon will be played, you can reduce the play cost by 2 per Digimon for each Digimon the opponent has. So ultimately, say if they do have a wide board, what this means is that you can play this down, it has rush, you can tuck X antibody underneath, you swing, and then you will go into this being your main boss monster, and that is going to be your free Omni X antibodies. Very powerful card here, and all these work in tandem really well, as long as you have X antibody underneath. So ultimately the game plan is to get into this, and this is why, you know, having X antibody, having this that can basically do a pseudo blitz, means that you've got enough checks to win game. Because ultimately, when digivolving, if you have X antibody or Omnimon in its source, you're able to select one Digimon, and that's also on your side and the opponent's side, and then delete the rest, and then you're able to bot deck one of your opponent's Digimon, which is where you're literally just getting rid of the whole board. Getting rid of the whole board right there. And you can obviously, you know, kind of select accordingly depending on what type of protection they've got, to kind of work around that. Because some might just have obviously deletion protection, but may not necessarily have bot deck protection, and then some might effectively have protection based on how many bodies on board and so forth. So you can obviously plan how you want to, you know, apply this overall effect carefully. And then what will happen, obviously, for you to kind of claim the game there, once you've done your massive damage, obviously this is going to be swinging through security at 16k. If you've evoed on top of your EX9 Metal Grey, what that means that effectively you're going to be at 20k, because you're going to get additional 4k off the inheritable of that card. So it means that realistically there's not really anything in security that could actually get rid of you apart from an option, but that's where you obviously have your protection inheritables to kind of prevent that from happening. Is that at the end of the turn, one of your Digimon gains rush, and it can swing without unsuspending. So that's where you obviously swing for game right there. It's crazy how potent this is, though it does require a little bit of setup, but as soon as you're pushing out, the opponent should know that, yeah, it's curtains. Now let's go over to the options. So options here is to support the overall game plan of what we're doing without necessarily, you know, bot decking a lot of our pieces, because obviously we do not want to do that because it can actually set us back. So we do go with the 2 scrambles. So scrambles is here for more the if shit goes south kind of play, because sometimes, you know, we might just need to actually reclaim a piece right there. So, you know, it's classic red fashion. We may not actually have our line. Might be some pieces that we just never get. So for example, there was one game where I literally had every card for the OTK apart from a champion. So naturally I just played out a red scramble. So when the opponent was kind of chipping into my security and I happened to trip into a champion, what that means is that if obviously they've got a Digimon out, I can obviously trigger red scramble to then effectively get that card from Trash and place it at the top of the deck. So I then will have a champion in order for me to actually climb up my line. Also, like I say, it's great obviously if we protect out some from security, because it means that we can actually play one of our Argumons out to then once again further search and so forth. So really handy to have that rocking it too. And then we go in with the free offense trainings. Like I say, sometimes we don't want to dig too deep, because we don't want to bot deck our X antibodies. And because we don't necessarily run so much X antibody like Digimon, I don't think there's enough validation to be running Cool Boy in this list. Obviously there's probably a bit further testing, but I've definitely found that, like, I'm just not running that many X antibody lines to, you know, have that going, because obviously if I bot deck them my Wargrey, that's my main win con. I ain't going to be doing nothing like that. But offense just really helps us set up, helps us get our tamer, which obviously our tamer is pretty key for us to do what we need to be doing, and just obviously helps with that memory efficiency. You can actually, if you're at your champion, so Greymon in back, and you have an offense training, effectively, and you have all your line and so forth, you can OTK on one memory and a training, just because the Rise helps us just set up for next to nothing when you have a training out. So yeah, definitely cool plays that you can do with this. Lastly, we just go in with the free X antibodies. There could be an argument that you want to run for, but sometimes you don't necessarily want to see it too often. Really, you just need to see one, and you're pretty much good. But X Antibody is a great bomb in security. You know, it enables us to gain a memory, and this goes to our hand, which then is like, sweet, well, I'm going to push out and do what I'm going to do, which is handy. And then on top of that, this is the card which enables us to safely go into our Omni X play right there. So you definitely want to see this in hand before you start pushing out, and that's the reason why I'm not necessarily running Red Memory Boost, just because there has been times where I have done a search and I have revealed 2 of these, and I'm like, oh damn, now I've literally got one that I need to kind of hope for, or I really have to kind of get that memory and play a little bit more reserved in order for me to, you know, ensure I can go to Omni X to do what I need to do. But that is the ratios right there for the options. So let's go over to then the Tamers. Tamers are pretty simple. So we do simply just go for a 4 of the BT1 Tai. This is just fantastic for us to kind of push our damage even further. Great memory setter there as well. Can't complain on that. But there's so many combinations that you can obviously do with this. Obviously, we can play it from our champion line, and then we also can play it from our ultimate line with the RizeGrey there as well. Or we can literally just throw this down if we have our EX9 Metal Grey Alterius mode, in order for us to, once again, further push damage. And then lastly, this is kind of a bit of a flex spot at the moment. Just run the BT12 Tai Kamiya. This could literally be anything, and this is why I'm kind of thinking maybe just a one-off Cool Boy might be nice. But the reason why I like the Tai is because it's just another name for us to kind of search out and ensure that we do get a tamer out, because once again, it is quite crucial that we have a tamer out in order for Wargreymon's effect to trigger, because you will not be able to get that additional security attack and piercing without a tamer established right there. But that's pretty much it. Simple and clean for the ratios and the tamers and the debt list. That is the way of the grey. And there you have it, guys. The ways of the grey laid out, ready for you to tweak and amend to your playstyle. But what do I think to the overall list and the performance? I think the list is really solid and very linear in what it needs to be doing. We just want to effectively just get to at least our ultimate, push out, go to freaking Wargrey, end an opponent's career. That's all we're trying to do, and try to do it swiftly. The thing that I do like about the list is the fact that now, due to the rise, we have great ways to get out our tamers, and because we have the BT1 Tai, it's just a very powerful tamer to be playing out for free. Which is solid. And ultimately what we want to be doing is just making sure we get at least 1 or 2 tamers out. That's literally it. Even if we have a suboptimal line, we can still do a lot of damage at the opponent and putting them in a very awkward predicament. But 9 times out of 10, what you want to be doing is at least getting 1 tamer out and getting either starter deck Greymon and a Rise, and you're good to go. Or in reverse, a starter deck Greymon, and you could literally go into a Metal Grey and then into an EX9 Metal Grey, throw down tamer, and go again. There's different ways that you can kind of play it, which can kind of trick the opponent a little bit. I feel like sometimes, like, you know, you could easily choke Wargrey in the past, but now that we can effectively just climb up and get our stuff laid out without much memory, we're pretty much Gucci. We're pretty much sitting quite nicely. It is very piece reliant, like there's no denying that whatsoever. But X Antibody can be propped on security and entered into our hands, which is great. So running that at 3 is increasing the odds of that. Like I say, there's an argument that you could push to 4, maximizing those odds of it being in security, because it is an amazing bomb. It can pass over turn and trip an opponent out. You do need to be running Omnimon X Antibody at 3. I tried it at 2. It ain't the wave. It ain't the wave. It's literally the reason why I bought a 3rd one. It's because you need to see that. Like, you ultimately need to see that in order for you to just make sure that you're doing it consistently. And otherwise, what you could be left with is your pants down. And I don't want to see my brother's pants down. No, sirree. So definitely need to be running at 3, no less. And then your secret Wargrey, a very powerful card and an amazing facilitator for the deck until we get some form of Blitz Greymon. But then effectively we do have a Blitz Greymon from the EX set, but that does not grant you that additional security attack, and that's what really helps out there as well. You got additional security attack, you do have raid, you do have piercing. It's a very strong Wargreymon to have, and it's amazing for this kind of list that I've cooked up here for what the overall game plan is going for that cleave going in there. So yeah, overall really enjoyed the list, really fun, nice little pet deck here that I'm just kind of always cooking. I like Wargrey. It's just, yeah, times it can break, and that's just the way of the red decks, to be honest. But guys, if you enjoyed the video and the content, make sure you subscribe and tick the notification bell. Doing lists like this on the reg, and stay safe and stay fly, because this brother's out of here. Peace.